When a request enters a Spring Boot application, it rarely stays in just one place. In a microservice system, that single request can travel through multiple services, databases, and APIs. But when something goes wrong, how do you know where the problem is? In this video, we will configure distributed tracing in a Spring Boot application step by step using Micrometer and OpenTelemetry, and we will visualize the traces on Grafana UI. Distributed tracing helps us track a single request as it flows across multiple services. Each request is identified using a trace ID, and inside each service, the work done is captured as spans. This allows us to answer questions like which service is slow, where did the request fail, how much time did each component take. Without distributed tracing, debugging microservices becomes guesswork. In Spring Boot 3 and above, distributed tracing is much easier because of Micrometer. In this demo, we will use Micrometer tracing for instrumentation, OpenTelemetry as the tracing implementation, and Tempo as the tracing backend. Let's start with a Spring Boot application. You can use an existing project or create a new one using Spring Initializer. I already have a simple Spring Boot application open here. To enable distributed tracing, we need to add Micrometer and OpenTelemetry dependencies. Micrometer acts as an abstraction layer, while OpenTelemetry provides the actual tracing implementation. We will add the Micrometer OpenTelemetry bridge, the OTLP exporter, and the Spring Boot actuator. Next, we need to configure tracing in the application configuration file. First, we enable tracing and configure sampling. Setting the sampling probability to 1 means every request will be traced. This is great for development, but in production you usually reduce this value. We also configure the OTLP endpoint. This tells Spring Boot where to send trace data. In our case, we are using Grafana LGTM running locally. To generate tracing from this application, we need an endpoint. Let's create a simple REST controller with a single GET API in our application. This endpoint doesn't contain any tracing code. Tracing is applied automatically by Spring Boot and Micrometer. Now we need a tracing backend to visualize the traces. We will use Grafana LGTM and run it using Docker. This container exposes the Grafana UI and an OTLP endpoint for receiving traces. Let's start the Spring Boot application and call the API. Once the request is sent, trace data is automatically exported to OpenTelemetry collector running in Grafana LGTM. If we open the Grafana UI and search for traces, we can now see the complete request flow. Each bar here represents a span, and together they form a single trace. This gives us end-to-end visibility of the request. And that's how you configure distributed tracing in a Spring Boot application using OpenTelemetry. If you found this video helpful, like it, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments if you would like to see tracing across multiple microservices or databases. Thanks for watching.